And now for our feature presentation.
He'll be fine on the mountain.
JB and Darren on the JB and Goldwater Show.
Line drive right field, base hit. South Carolina wins the College World Series. Watson, touchdown. Hunter Renfrow. Got him, and it's all over. Carolina rules the roost. They win the championship. And South Carolina has won the national championship.
Senegal baseball team has done it again, but this time the Bulldogs beat one of the top teams in the country. They are giant killers. Get the ball and Bennett, he dives.
Gamecocks are in the Final Four.
All right, greetings and a good Monday afternoon, and welcome aboard the JB and Goldwater Show, live, loud, and online, and very proudly presented by our friends and yours over at Motley Rice. Causes, not just cases, MotleyRice.com. Driven by Stokes Volkswagen, StokesVW.com. Make sure you get your new ride with our friends at Stokes Volkswagen. Again, StokesVW.com. Make sure you find us on the JB and Goldwater app and also at jbandgoldwatershow.com, and you can be part of a very active Share Healthcare chat room already. If you're on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, wherever, you can always send a text as well, and Darren can pop you into our program, and you can hang out with us just like Clint, Jamie, Aaron, and David, and so many others are. Share Healthcare, affordable healthcare coverage for your family. ShareHealthcare.com, as low as $149 a month. Yes, we will talk plenty about South Carolina whipping Florida on Saturday night at Williams-Brice Stadium. Wes Mitchell, Perry Orth back-to-back today, 12:30, 105. Gene Sapakoff probably has something to say about that as well at 1:35 today. So certainly a lot of Gamecocks because it was a huge win for Shane Beamer and his football program. Darren, you're right. I still haven't gotten my voice totally back from Saturday night. This is football season, normal football season for me, especially when you here and there have a good game, and it was a pretty good one for South Carolina. We do have high school football to get to. Clemson survives in Louisville. They can still win the Atlantic Division in the ACC and get to the ACC championship. A lot of wild stuff happened across the country, but there's no doubt about it. What happened in Columbia shocked many, including myself. I would venture you, Darren, and probably a lot of other folks out there that we know quite well.
Yeah, I mean, how can you not be shocked by what happened? First of all, credit to Carolina, okay? You know I'm going to come on the show and say a lot about Florida today. That's obvious. Credit to Carolina. They deserve it. They played, I don't know how many times better than they've played all season long in lots of different areas. They deserve a heap load of credit. Florida, however, was on the verge of implosion and did. I said throughout the game, I thought Dan Mullen could get fired that night. Well, instead, he decided to just fire other people instead, or administration decided to fire other people instead. That is a program in absolute free fall. And the question now for Carolina, because a program like this, in the state that the fan base was in the state the program was in, you'll take any type of team, any type of wounded animal to get you right. Can you take this and make it right? Can you make this into a stepping stone? Can you build on this? Because it put you in a position to make it right. You did what you were supposed to do. You're in a position to make it right. Now what's the next step? But congratulations to Carolina. It was a shock to see them play as well as they played.
They played unbelievable, and we're waiting kick times for a couple of weeks from now. Should have it momentarily. Auburn will be the next team to visit Williams-Brice. Of course, South Carolina has to go to the other Columbia, the one that smells of rotten animals and things like that, Columbia, Missouri, this weekend. But based on what the schedule looks like in a couple of weeks, I'm kind of expecting a night kick for Auburn in South Carolina. Arkansas and Alabama, probably the leader in the clubhouse to get CBS. And then after that, the slate just isn't very good. There's only 2 other all-SEC games, Florida at Missouri, and Vanderbilt is at Ole Miss. So, but back to what happened on Saturday night. Yeah, look, I'm going to lead off by saying that Florida's got issues. There's no doubt about that. Florida has issues, and we talked a lot about that last week. That they had problems, and we didn't know exactly what those problems would look like, and this, that, and the other. In saying all of that, South Carolina only a few weeks ago beat Vanderbilt by 1 point. Give me Florida and all the problems and over Vanderbilt and who they are without a bunch of problems. And Carolina throttled them in every phase of the game from the opening. There was so much good that happened in that football game. And I agreed totally with what Coach Beamer said after the game, and he deserves so much credit. But he said after the game, he was hoping the media wouldn't turn into the narrative of what's going on with Florida. He said, tonight's about South Carolina. And he was right, because Gamecocks, the football team themselves, the fans, anybody who's been willing to pay attention, have been waiting all year to figure out what type of identity Carolina can come up with. And they finally refound who a lot of what they were last year, but this year with better players and with a quarterback in Jason Brown who was ready to go. And on top of that, special teams was elite. The defense was elite. Everybody can talk about all Florida's problems all they want to. They led the nation in yards per carry coming into the game, 6.1. They were one of the best rushing teams in all of football. They had 82, and a lot of those were just garbage yards at the end of the game, 3.2 yards per carry. So with all the problems going on down there at Florida, here's this South Carolina team who, by the way, they got a fair share of problems themselves. A third-string quarterback, the last time that they played football, they had 15 yards of total offense through 3 quarters. Didn't even look like the same team on Saturday night. So even though Florida has issues, and this isn't intended at you, Darren, you said it correctly, but even though Florida has issues, South Carolina deserves all of the credit for kicking their ass inside of Williams-Brice Stadium Saturday night, scoring 40 points against Florida, the most points they've ever scored against them, and doing it with a third-string quarterback in an offense that literally until the moment the game kicked off, we all thought was incompetent, dead in the water, and this was going to be a long November, although I predicted before the season started Carolina would not go defeated in this month. I thought they would win somewhere. And now look what's happened, Darren. It's surprising what a little confidence can do and an identity can do for you. There isn't a game left on the schedule that they can't win if they're able to come out and do things like they did Saturday night. We all know it. Clemson, Auburn, and Missouri are all beatable teams. Do I predict they'll win them all? No, I don't. I'd be stunned to see that. But the fact of the matter is, going into the game, we thought, oh, my God, this could be a really rough finish for Shane Beamer. And that's all changed. And here we are on a Monday afternoon for the first time all year, including Eastern Illinois in week 1. And Carolina feels really good. And let me add real quick, too. Last year, South Carolina beat Auburn, and it was an upset at Williams-Brice. Although Auburn was kind of having a down year, it was still an upset. The year before, in 2019, South Carolina went to Athens, and they beat Georgia. So I like what a bunch of people have been saying the last couple of days. Hey, look, let's see what they do with this, right? Because the last couple of years, they got these wins, and they didn't do anything with them. Matter of fact, it got worse as the year went on. The difference that I saw in this game, I've already rewatched it as well. The difference I saw in this game compared to those 2 previous upsets under Will Muschamp were that South Carolina, although they forced Georgia and Auburn into some mistakes, they took the game to Florida. Like, period. They controlled it. They didn't necessarily control the Georgia game or the Auburn game in the last 2 years in those upsets. They took it right at the Gators, ran it right down their throats, did what they wanted to, and they came out of there with an incredibly comfortable victory. It was people were going, don't let them score again. Let's hang 50. Let's Spurrier them like he did to us in the 90s. It was a great night at Williams-Brice Stadium.
I'll evaluate it when we see what happens against Missouri, right? Because this has been what this has been what in my 20 years living down here, this has been the story of South Carolina. These epic lows followed by these epic highs. There's almost no in between. There's almost no I don't know. There's almost no medium level here. It's either like epic high or epic low, and then how do you follow these highs? I think the difference is, while Beamer's right, for South Carolina, this is about South Carolina. For South Carolina, this is about the steps that they took, the dramatic improvement, the Satterfield quieting critics, the fact that, oh my God, you can run the ball, and not only can you run it, you had 100 yards before the end of the first quarter. Yeah, all of that is true. It is also about Florida. And when you compare it to those other big wins, Georgia and Auburn are better football teams than Florida is right now. They're bad. I don't want to say they're bad. They are.
Oh no, I think they're bad.
Well,
they're not bad from a talent standpoint, but as a team, how they're playing football, it's pretty bad.
Right. Are they playing as hard? Right. I'm not tied into that program, but folks that are, we talked about it last week. There are pieces out about, are they playing hard on the field? I can tell you Saturday night, they were not playing nearly as hard as South Carolina was playing. I don't know what the level of how hard can they play. They certainly weren't playing at that level. Their defense was certainly a mess. Their offensive line was a disaster. So the reason South Carolina could take it to Florida more so than Georgia and Auburn and feel even better about this is because of how wide that gap was, because you were able to push them around, whereas you had to get fortunate in that Georgia and that Auburn game that you referenced. And now, again, how do you follow this up? Vegas has Missouri opening at a 3-point favorite. It is still Missouri favored by 1. Can you win more games on this schedule? Absolutely. No doubt you can. Can you get to a bowl? Absolutely. And that was pretty much the baseline goal, right? Can Beamer get to a bowl in his first year? And this flip of the switch right here, the question of how strong that flip is going to be answered with how you play against Missouri. If you can go out and dominate Missouri the way you just dominated Florida, we've talked for weeks about Missouri's rushing defense and the lack thereof. If you can go out and dominate Missouri, follow this up with that, that's going to instill a lot more confidence from a lot of people, not just fans, but college football insiders, guys who do this for a living. Those eyeballs will be opened, even if you can do this against Missouri, just to follow up this performance with another competent-looking performance.
Yeah, there you go. That's good work, because I still, I think it's fair for Gamecock football fans to be a little hesitant going to Missouri this weekend. They're not really good. I mean, they're capable on offense. We'll see what happens with their quarterback situation. They still got some bang-ups there, but defensively, they're awful. I mean, let's just call it what it is. Carolina's been awful on the road this year too. It's not been good. So it is a good thing that they're not kicking it at 11 a.m. Central Time up there in Columbia, or at night, where maybe Mizzou has a chance to get a little bit juiced up and energized. A mid-afternoon kick against a probably a pretty sad crowd, to be honest with you, is right what Carolina wants to walk into in Columbia to try to capitalize on this, Darren. And I agree with that. You're right. I mean, there's a lot of, after every college football game, there's always a lot of overreaction to everything, and there are a lot of different conversations that come out. And, like I've already had this mentioned to me multiple times. Well, the sad part about this is, maybe this means that Satterfield stays. Who cares? I mean, if the offense flips the switch and they figure it out, that would probably be a good thing, right? Like,
this is what it's supposed to look like.
Yeah,
right, keep it.
I'm not past the point of, well, let me tell everybody how I was right all along, and he's wrong, and it's not personal. It's hey, look, if you can figure out your job and figure out how to do it well, absolutely stay around as long as he wants to. I mean, I think those conversations are all pretty ridiculous at this point in time. But in the next 3 games, if you revert back to who you were, sure. Yeah, then you had a flash in the pan type moment, and Carolina's probably going to have some decisions to make in the offseason. But I said credit to Shane Beamer a minute ago, and And look, is I don't even know what's playing right now. I'm like, you gotta be kidding me. Come on. I think as fans, and we'll get into a lot of the nuts and bolts of this game as the day goes along. Obviously, Jason Brown was special. And there's a lot of conversation. Why hadn't he been playing things like that? We're going to talk to Perry and Wes about all that stuff too. But I think, this conversation, Darren, I think something that's important is we all need to be willing to understand that as much as fans and media, guys like me, whoever, want to be critical, and I think we've been, I think, fairly critical around here. I say fairly, like fair. Critical when necessary, not when unnecessary. You got to be willing to turn the page and also be complimentary when it's due. And I know it's rubbed some people the wrong way the last couple of weeks. Shane's consistent energy, deflecting all the negativity, defending his football team and his coaches to no end. It's working. I mean, what matters at the end of the day is what do they believe in the locker room? Who cares what I think or what Darren thinks or what Mac and Dino, hey guys, hope y'all are well, what they think. None of it doesn't matter. What matters is what they think in the locker room. And Shane has been trying to fight off a firestorm of negativity. Now, he's put himself in some of those spots based on decisions, and it's his football team. That's part of the gig, man. People are going to bang up on you when you don't do things right. But how do you handle that? And as a young coach, Darren, you just beat Florida at home, regardless of what they're playing like, how many problems they have, by 23 points. That's more than when you won the Eastern Division a few years ago, and your team had 15 yards of offense in the last game they played. So he deserves so much credit as a head coach. I hope people will give it to him.
I think he deserves credit, absolutely. And I think Satterfield deserves credit as well. I think everyone in that locker room deserves a lot of credit for bubbling themselves in, for lack of a better term, right? Not letting the noise get into them, not letting their performance get into them, not letting everything that's happened spiral the season and send it out of control, because it could have happened. It could have happened already. And had last night or Saturday night been a different story, that could have been the trigger or endpoint from it as well. I've been pretty consistent saying I didn't think a change should be made, particularly mid-season. I wasn't even looking down the road. I've been very consistent saying I didn't think it should be made because this is all a process. And part of this process, we'll talk to people who know more. I don't know how that scheme changed. I don't know how Jason Brown affected the play of others around him or how this could be anticipated from Jason Brown. There are a lot of questions of how exactly this all went down and how this came together to look a complete 180 from the team that we've seen playing over these last couple of weeks. But that's part of this process, right? For South Carolina, you've got a first-time head coach. You've got an offensive coordinator who hasn't been there at this level. You've got an offensive line coach who, while we've talked about it, has been under heat as well. But my God, they played great. So what flip switched here? Was it just a quarterback? That can't be. I think the credit belongs inside that entire building for everybody buying into the entire message and saying, let's stay together. Here are the fruits of the reward right here. It's in front of you. You just pounded the whatever out of Florida. There's your reward. Now take it and go do something with it. And they all deserve credit for not burying their heads in the sand when a lot of the fan base was thinking that they either were, had, should, but instead they pushed forward. They all deserve a lot of credit for that.
Yeah, they do. I mean, they do. And checking the Share Healthcare chat lines here, Tyler says, I liked how he called out the fans that didn't come and then spun it to the recruits. It was a good the crowd. I think they announced it around 70,000. I'd pin it more around 65. But it was a good crowd. It was a boisterous crowd. It should be. Nighttime at Williams-Brice is generally a pretty fun atmosphere. And now, those last two games, every scenario that could play out, they're going to be packed. Stands are going to be packed. It's always going to be that way for Clemson. Mm-hmm. But now Auburn, let's say you don't win at Missouri, You still have the Auburn game at home, where, by the way, you're 4-1 this year at Williams-Brice Stadium to get bowl eligible. Hope people want to be there to see that. Everybody said just go to a bowl in Shane Beamer's first year. Well, guess what, guys? The next win gets you there. If you beat Missouri, now you really have momentum, and there's going to be some folks excited to go watch Gamecock football again at Williams-Brice. So the last two atmospheres, I think, are going to be pretty special, and Coach Beamer and that team deserve it. At the end of the day, they're 5-4, and before the year, Darren, remember when we talked about expectations, and you said something that I totally agreed with. It's people predict records and things like that, but records are fine to predict. But at the end of the year, what do we end up doing? We talk about, well, had they won this game, or had they not lost that game, or whatever. So you got to give some details and some clarity to your prediction as to what it looks like, not just the record, but what does the record look like? Mm-hmm. So as part of that conversation before the year started, Darren, we mentioned, okay, well, or at least I did, okay, there's 4 games that you can't lose. Those are the games you're expected to win, and that's Troy and East Carolina, Vanderbilt and Eastern Illinois. But then in order, I think, to call this season overall a success, you're going to have to beat a couple of teams you're not supposed to beat. And they've got one down. And I think a lot of people thought that would come earlier, right? Me included. That was going to be against Kentucky, or that was going to be against Tennessee, but it didn't. It came against Florida in November, and you pair that with the what if that I'm about to throw at you. What if they start playing their best football now, which is generally when you want to play your best at the end of the year? Who knows? Who knows what could happen? It's okay to dream. I'm not going to go out and predict the next 3 games, but if you start playing your best football, it doesn't always mean that you win the game. You could be playing the best football you've played in 5 years and lose. But if you are playing your best football down the stretch, boy, do you have much more of a chance than you had before.
And part of that conversation before the year was, how are you going to evaluate success in year 1 under Shane Beamer? And part of that conversation was, success will be record, yeah. Bowl game, yeah. But do you see progress? And progress wasn't necessarily in wins and losses. Progress, based on that conversation, and that carried over, and it's still true right now. Progress is on the field. Are you seeing this team get better? And for the first 8 weeks, the answer was no. But that's only 2/3 of the season. So if this is the turning point, if the Gamecocks are about to start playing their best football and can build off of this and finish strong, I'm not saying win the games, but continue to look like some form of Saturday night's Gamecocks team, then yeah, if that happens for the next 3 games, and then probably a bowl game if that happens and carries into that, then you look at this year and you say, yeah, this was a successful year under Shane Beamer, first-year coach, first-year staff, new transition for a lot of these guys, a quarterback situation that was an absolute disaster, and they went from a team spiraling to a team that got better by the end and was markedly better at the end of the year than they were at the beginning. There's a lot of positives that you can take out of that. Again, that's why I've gone back to, look, pump the brakes on let's push people out the door. Let's see, right? Let's see. I didn't say let's see expecting to see this, but hey, okay, we've seen it. Can you build off this? Can you keep this going? Because if that's the case, then there's going to be a lot of people shaking their heads and saying, wow, what a hire. Now what's next in year 2 for Shane Beamer and the Gamecocks?
Yeah, and I'll disagree a little bit with something you said. I have seen progress through the first 8 games, special teams and defensively. But offensively, they had totally regressed. Mm-hmm. So to your point, with progress overall, 2/3 of the team was better, I thought, at least, and 1/3 wasn't. But Saturday night, they were pretty good, right? And yeah, so it's, and you know what, I think too, to your point there, everybody think about this for a second, and I haven't thought about it either, but now we're seeing some fallout from the game on Saturday night. So Coach Avesi, the offensive line coach at Florida, and Todd Grantham, I thought should have probably been fired last year, but have now both been let go by Dan Mullen, okay? A day after they get beat by South Carolina at Williams-Brice. So we all thought, Darren, that Florida had issues going into the game. I say we all thought that was a really broad term, but I think there's a lot of people that thought, man, the Gators have some issues. Of course, there's also a lot of people that thought, well, they're going to South Carolina. If they got issues, they'll get them figured out against the Gamecocks, right? And it went totally the other way. So, but that's what we thought going into the game. How about now? Now that they fired 2 coaches in the middle of the year, mentally, everybody's going, wow, what a dumpster fire. All right, so let's pause that right there. Now come over to Columbia, South Carolina. If Shane Beamer, say a few weeks ago, when I publicly said it, had said, and this is why you don't listen to me, hey, you need to probably move on. This is a disaster. You got to let someone else call the plays. Publicly, what would that look like across the country? That message that would be sent is, oh my God, this guy doesn't know what he's doing. He's in his first year and he's firing coaches 6 games into the season, 7 games into the season. Yeah, you know what? As fans, we're sitting there watching every week, pulling our hair out going, this is a nightmare. But he deserves a lot of credit here, and people like me who've been critical need to be the first ones to give him credit. He avoided what Florida looks like by causing more of a dumpster fire as to what they might have already been in, stuck with the game plan. They got an off week. They leveled some things out, and they came out and they beat the crap out of somebody on Saturday night and totally changed the narrative. So sometimes it works out in different ways. As Steve Spurrier said, you can't always script it. Sometimes it's just your day or whatever. It might just be your time. Shane deserves a lot of credit right now. People need to give it to him. And let's see what happens coming up on Saturday in Columbia, Missouri.
And for everyone who was critical of the over positive tone that continued to come out of Beamer, and look, I said this then, it's still true, and it was even more evident last night. That's who he is, that's who you hired, and that's why you hired him. So going through the rough patch, who knows what patch we're at right now, he maintained that persona. Saturday night, the interactions, not just post-game with the family, and that was very cool to see, but the interactions on the sideline, the interactions throughout the game, the players, the family that is on that sideline, that was clear. And you don't see that as evident for a team that was really, in all intents and purposes, in many ways spiraling themselves because of the sputtering offense that we saw. The last time we saw them, couldn't do anything and progressively getting worse on the offensive side of the ball, to suddenly come out and have that energy and that positivity and that genuine love for each other in the midst of what's been going on. A lot of that goes right back to Beamer and the staff that's followed in line with kind of the mantra he's set. If that hasn't been the tone from day one, you're going to have a hard time convincing me that flip gets switched last night or Saturday night like that, because it doesn't. It just doesn't. So you went from a really bad spot to a much better spot. And a lot of that is because of the just general attitude that's been infused into the team.
Yeah, there's no question, man. It was Perry and I were texting earlier. I said, this is going to be a positive week for Gamecock football, and it should be. They've earned it. They've been through the trenches for the last couple of months. People can pat them on the back for the next few days, and let's watch them go play football again coming up on Saturday. Real quick, before we get to break, a couple of comments from the Share Healthcare chat line. Clint said, I wonder what bowl we would get if we finished 75. Maybe the Gator Bowl. Maybe. Got to get to 6 before we get to 7, so we'll see. But that would certainly be a big win for Coach in his first year. Let's see. Macadino with 7 wins. Should Shane win Coach of the Year? I'm assuming they're in the SEC. I'm sure somebody can make a case for it. He won't. Right now, it's going to be hard to top what Kirby Smart is doing at Georgia, and he'll deservedly probably be Coach of the Year for that. But hey, still got to play 3 games, and look what Josh Heupel's done up at Tennessee. They weren't expected to be very good this year either, and they've done a nice job. Brian Harsin can still, get a bunch of good things done over at Auburn as the season unfolds, even though they got beat this weekend by the way, what appears to be probably the second best defense in the SEC ahead of Alabama, A&M, but behind Georgia. A&M's D is something. And then Grover, I don't get the O-line fire, obviously referencing Coach Avesi from Florida. They were averaging 6.7 yards on the ground and near the top of the SEC on sacks not allowed. I did see something kind of humorous last night. Apparently, Coach Vesey, who's been coaching with Dan Mullen for 20 years, has already, quote unquote, unfollowed him on social media. Yeah, I don't get it either. All right, before we go, breaking news from the SEC, and hope you like staying up late. Auburn and South Carolina is slated for a 7 o'clock kickoff on ESPN on November the 20th. 3:30 is Arkansas and Alabama, pretty much as I predicted. And then the nightcap, the second biggest game in the league that week, according to the league, Auburn and South Carolina will kick at Williams-Brice Stadium at 7 o'clock on ESPN, making this coming week's game against Missouri even more fun for Gamecock fans. We'll see what happens. All right, we're going to hit a timeout. When we return, Wes Mitchell will join us from Gamecock Central. Plenty to get to there. We'll get into Clemson as well in a little while. Gene Sapakoff, Perry Orth. It's going to be a fun afternoon. Don't go anywhere. The JB and Goldwater Show presented by Motley Rice. We'll be right back.
This is Mike Mazzell for Stokes Volkswagen on Ashley Phosphate Road. You know what happens when you sell record numbers of new vehicles? That's right, we take in record numbers of local trades. Despite what the news is saying, quality pre-owned vehicles really aren't that hard to find. You just need to know where to look. Stokes Volkswagen on Ashley Phosphate and on the web at stokesvw.com. We've got over 1,200 pre-owned cars, trucks, SUVs, and all at a fraction of the price when new. Every vehicle has been inspected and reconditioned, many with the balance of factory warranty. Best of all, at Stokes Volkswagen, you don't need perfect credit to get approved for a quality pre-owned vehicle. And we'll take any trade in any condition, even if you owe thousands more than it's worth. Don't forget, we'll buy your car even if you don't buy a car from us. You're going to love our pre-owned selection, I guarantee it. So come see us today at Stokes Volkswagen on Ashley Phosphate or stokesvw.com.
Peace and love at Stokes VW.
Negative trade equity finance to new loan, subject to lender approval.
People don't like to get stuck in traffic, stuck in the mud, stuck at work. And two others you probably don't think much about, stuck with a big medical bill or stuck with a healthcare program that doesn't fit who you are. Experience true medical freedom with Share Healthcare. More affordable, more options, user-friendly, and biblically sound. You can join right now. Explore a new way to show you care with Share Healthcare. Join us today at sharehealthcare.com. sharehealthcare.com.
Wando Power Equipment, the trusted home of Hustler zero-turn residential and commercial mowers. There is nobody more trusted in South Carolina than our friends from Wando Power Equipment. They've been providing elite commercial and residential service for over 30 years. Landscape Services have turned to their selection of Hustler zero-turn mowers like the Raptor. Bigger, stronger, faster, and the most durable Raptor Hustler has ever designed. Located on Daniel Island and online at wandopower.com. Wando Power Equipment, owned by the Price family, the home of Hustler zero-turn mowers, rentals, service, and specializing in family and friendship.
You hear me talk about Dog and Duck all the time, and there's no other place I'm going to watch my college and NFL than the Dog and Duck. They have 3 locations, Bell Hall, Park West, and Clements Ferry Road. They have specials all football season long, like $12 pitchers of their own D2 brew, $5 pints of Sierra Nevada, weekly pick'em sheets with prizes, and the best wings in town, bar none. For all your football, college, and NFL, the Dog and Duck, Clements Ferry Road, Bell Hall, and Park West.
Motley Rice LLC is a law firm with international reach, but it hasn't lost its Carolina roots. The Motley Rice team fights every day for people harmed by products including asbestos and talc exposure, medical drugs and devices, and also catastrophic injuries and auto recalls, including dangerous Takata airbags. Motley Rice is headquartered in Mount Pleasant at 28 Bridgeside Boulevard. Visit motleyrice.com. Thank you, Motley Rice, for supporting the JB and Goldwater Show and the Big Gamecock Preview Show.
The electricity here in Columbia, well, has been buzzing loudly all weekend.
Sit back and enjoy, everybody. Here come the Gamecocks. The rain breaks out in Columbia. And they're all sorts of riled up here in the Palmetto State.
That was certainly the case on Saturday night at Williams-Brice Stadium, and it more than likely will be in 2 weeks as well, as Auburn and Carolina are slated for another night one at Williams-Brice, 7 o'clock on ESPN. But first, Missouri lies ahead for the Gamecocks, Wes, who are suddenly feeling pretty good about themselves. 5-4 now with a blowout win over the Florida Gators. And, Wes, so there's some people in the world who I'd love to have their job at some point in times, and then there's some people who I don't really want their job a lot. You're in the I don't want your job a lot category, because when things don't go well, man, you hear a lot of crazy things. But I mentioned to Darren a little while ago, this week, Carolina football deserves 5 days of positivity going into the Missouri game. And I know one thing on this show, they're going to get it, because it's been a long road, but Saturday night was pretty special. What's up, man?
Yeah, it was. What's up, guys? I am thrilled to be talking to you today about the offense and not saying bad things and not asking or answering questions about why is this not working? Why has that not worked? And I'm ecstatic for the fan base. I'm ecstatic for Shane Beamer and that coaching staff, and most of all for those kids, man. I mean, sometimes hard work doesn't always get rewarded, and I feel like these guys have say what you want about the games, like these kids have busted their tails all year long, and not that anybody's arrived or that the season's over or anything like that, but just for them to be rewarded with that success on Saturday, and for it to be really with an exclamation point as opposed to just backing into a win or anything like that, just to absolutely dominate Florida, to hammer Florida. I would say to beat them into submission was what it felt like to me. And really a game, as Beamer pointed out, it could have been even worse. Like there were points to be had out there as well if a couple of things went a little bit differently. So, man, kudos. You almost don't want to name specific players. I know I'm sure we will talk about specific players, but that was really such a complete program, team effort. That was it was just fun. It was fun to watch, man. It was fun to see, and it's fun to talk about.
Well, I think you said a team effort. I mean, Wes, I've been thinking back for the last 24 hours or more to the last time I saw a total complete game played like that by the Gamecocks. It's been a while. I mean, there hadn't been a lot of wins the last couple of years, so those are pretty easy to pick through. But then you go back prior to that, and I mean, was there a game? This is not a shot at Coach Muschamp. Don't take it this way. Was there a game in his era where they just literally from start to finish dominated the football game? I can't really remember one.
I would say not among SEC opponents. I'm sure you can go back and find some, a Charleston Southern game or something, but against actual, to beat an SEC East opponent like that, in your house, night game, to me, now they didn't dominate Tennessee, but I would say that, the year one win over Tennessee, which was a big win for Muschamp at the time, it kind of feels a little bit like that to me. But as far as just the way they went about it, and so out of nowhere, right? And our intern Kendall Smith actually picked South Carolina. Kudos to her. She was the only she's the only person on Gamecock Central as far as our staff to pick Carolina to win. It's like nobody outside, no national person is going to look at this game on paper going in and be like, oh yeah, this is the game South Carolina is going to win by 23 freaking points. How often? I mean, seriously, I'm not a gambler, but so somebody else maybe tune in and give me an answer. How often does a 20-point underdog win by 23? I know we've seen 20-point underdogs win games. It happened with South Carolina a couple of years ago at Georgia, and it seems like that's happened a little bit more recently, a little bit more often in recent years. But dude, to dominate a team when you're a 20-point dog is we've obviously never seen it with South Carolina.
Not much. No. 12:39 here on a Monday afternoon. Wes Mitchell with Gamecock Central. They have GC Live coming up today as well. We hope you'll check that out. I'm sure it will be a much more inspired hour than things have been in the past, like all of us get to finally do on a Monday. So let's get into the game a little bit, Wes, and then we'll start to look forward at this Mizzou game and kind of peek at the rest of the season. But yeah, I mean, the offense, Jason Brown, I think everybody wants to talk about it, so we'll go there first. And the question that has been asked the most, which I don't have the answer to, and maybe you do, is where's this cat been? What's going on here? The closest thing I can give to an answer personally, Wes, is that look, a few weeks ago, the last I had truly really heard was he just wasn't ready. And I can't get into all football speak because I don't understand some of it, but it wouldn't probably be a good thing. But it heard in coming weeks that he's been playing a little bit better, and one way or another, he got his chance, and he was really special. He created plays. He stayed away from bad plays. It was just a great night for him.
It was. I got to share a story because it was. So I most of the time don't watch the games in the press box. I like to experience the atmosphere. And this guy near me at the game when the offense scored first 5 possessions of the game, first time since 2013, yeah. I think. This guy a couple of rows over from me, he's just like, he just had a moment. He's like, where has this been? For 8 weeks I watched this offense. Where has this been? And I was like, man, we're going to get that question on Gamecock Central a lot this week. Where has this been? I'll say, and some people are going to roll their eyes, and that's fine. I will say this, like preseason, going back to the spring, Jason Brown was not ready, like based on what was happening in practice. As far as, I mean, this is a completely different take on an offensive scheme than what he was running at St. Francis. They were a true spread offense, whereas you're going into a pro-style offense that puts a lot on the quarterback. And the issue with Jason, from everything I was told when he first got here and going into preseason, is that he would make those plays that y'all saw on Saturday, that spin move where the guy's coming from his blind side, he spins off the pass rusher, gets out of there, and just flicks it 45 yards downfield to Josh Vann. Yeah. He was making those plays. That's a natural thing. But if you're in practice and you make that play, and then you turn the ball over the next play, but then, next drive, you make a similar big play, but then you turn the ball over. It's like, I get from a fan perspective, you're going to be like, what the, why has this guy not been playing? And I get that. Would we have maybe liked to have seen it a little bit sooner this season? Like I get that take. Now to go all the way back and say that a player right now in, what was that week? That was week 10 off the bye week, game 9, week 10. Mm-hmm. Let's not pretend that Jason Brown going into week 10 it's not a static thing. He's not the same person he was.
That's right.
When South Carolina had a quarterback battle way back in the preseason. So now, to give Jason Brown a ton of credit, is there a little bit of, I get the sense this guy is a gamer, and we've seen the coaches say that word as well. Does the play maybe get a little bit, when the lights come on and the juice gets going, does this guy have a little bit more in the tank? I would probably argue yes, but I think what we're seeing, y'all, is just when it clicked as far as being comfortable in this offense, and the big plays remained there, and the negative plays started. We saw him make great decisions on not forcing the ball down the field, throwing the football away at times, tucking it and running it at times, while other times keeping his eyes downfield and trying to make those plays. Now that he has found that sort of that right mix, right? It's one game. He'll have to continue to do it, but all the credit in the world. And guys, he really has an innate ability at stepping up in the pocket and maneuvering without, like, his eyes are still downfield. Is Perry on later, or is he already gone?
Yeah, right
I'd
after
love
you.
to hear Perry talk about how difficult that is for a quarterback to like maintain his technique while keeping his eyes downfield. And you're not even, a lot of those, it wasn't even that he was taking off running or rolling out. There were several times he truly stepped up in the pocket, got the football out with defenders either to his left or to his right. So I know I'm like giving y'all a super long-winded answer there, but to me, it just deserved that much discussion because there was just a lot to take in with what JB did. And a lot of it was very impressive. Like, he went out, he did what needed to be done, but it went above that as well, in my opinion.
Yeah, Wes. I mean, I saw earlier on our Share Healthcare chat lines, Craig had commented about some of the blocking schemes and things like that. It clearly was best the offensive line has looked all year. That includes Eastern Illinois. But I'm going to ask Perry about some of that too. Let him try to get into some of the technicalities. There were some differences out there. And I did speak with a source late on Saturday night that explained some of that to me, and I don't remember what the hell he said. So we'll let Perry do that. I want to, in addition to Jason Brown, Wes, I want to point out somebody else that I personally, Darren, can I give myself some credit here for a minute?
Sure.
Is this cool with you? I've been saying this all year, and I felt so happy to see Zaquandre White Saturday do more of what he did. He's my favorite player since Corey Boyd. They're very similar. That run he had Saturday actually reminded me of Corey's run in the Middle Tennessee State game. If you remember that one, Wes, back in 2006, I believe. Wrong sideline, wrong end zone, but headed in the right direction, if you know what I mean. And this cat, I want to point out one other play, though, and it wasn't just his runs. The touchdown pass. Okay, you just talked about the spin move and the 50-yarder to Josh. And then the next play, they threw behind the line of scrimmage for those that maybe didn't pick up on it. That was going to be a halfback pass, but it wasn't very well done. It's probably the only time all day that there was something bad that happened. And then the next play, Jason Brown steps up. He points Van into the end zone, and Florida, I guess they didn't realize it. When you catch it on the other side of that line there, that's a touchdown. There wasn't anybody even close to the end zone. But what happened on that play is that right side was overloaded. I don't know if you saw this or not, Wes. And you had two guys. You had the end and I think an outside linebacker coming in. And in order for Brown to step up and make a throw there and kind of buy himself some time, somebody had to pick up somebody over there. And Zaquandre White took the inside guy, took the inside shoulder, blocked them into each other, gave Jason Brown plenty of time to throw. Those little things that the common eye doesn't catch oftentimes get forgotten. But this kid played such a football game. It's remarkable. I just hope they keep playing him a lot because this young man averages 6.8 yards per carry, and he deserves to play. He loves the game.
Yeah, I let myself talk myself into, because if you looked at the stats, really for even that stretch, I think it was about 3 games where he was playing about special teams only. And I know he's a little bit banged up at that time, but he was still the leading rusher statistically, and it held through. And I let myself sort of, what was it, just because it was, Eastern Illinois. And, if you look at the analytics, even on PFF, as far as broken tackles forced, like you forced a missed tackle, I should say. He's at the top for South Carolina in that as well for the season. And, I think there's been this thing all year long of who is actually South Carolina's best running back. And, the guys have been banged up, and we saw what Kevin Harris did last year. And obviously Juju McDowell was the spark early on in the season. And we know Marshawn Lloyd was a 5-star back. To me, as far as who they are right now for South Carolina, I believe we saw South Carolina's 2 best backs carry the load on Saturday, and that was Z White and a healthy Kevin Harris. And Z White just brings he didn't have a huge role in the passing game this week, but he adds that dynamic as well. He brings so much energy. To point out a couple of other plays, like for one, the play you're talking about, the Z White long run, man. Jason Brown is 50. I mean, I don't know how many yards if you count the fact that you're running across the field as well.
Mm-hmm.
He's 60 yards downfield trying to find somebody to block. I think it was the same drive before that run. Zaquandre had one of his, like, this guy has some phenomenal, like, 7-yard runs, I feel like, where he's just sort of feeling his way through. They aren't big in the stat book, but just he made something happen. And Eric Douglas, the center, he's sitting there like he's running downfield, like throwing his arms like this. Tyshawn Wanamaker's throwing his arms up in the air. I'm like, these guys look like they're having a blast right now. And that was the difference, man. Florida, I don't know. I had planned on saying this on GC Live, but I'm going to go ahead and say it now. It's like, to me,
you can say it again.
Do what?
You can say it again if you want to.
Florida, here's the thing. South Carolina looked like they were having the literal time of their lives. Florida looked like this was just an appointment for them. And I felt like Dan Mullen had no respect for South Carolina because he threw the ball the first 10 times of the game. He threw 10 passes in a row, knowing South Carolina's weakness is run defense. So rather than set the tone like Kentucky did against South Carolina, he comes out and throws the ball 10 times in a row, basically repping his passing game, I felt like. Mm-hmm. And the other side, I assume the graphic, when I went back and watched the game, I caught this. I assume the graphic was correct. Florida was losing the game at obviously the end of the half and the end of the game. They went to the house. They went back to Gainesville with all 6 timeouts in their pocket. Like, have you ever seen a team that's getting crushed like that go home with 6 timeouts?
I don't think I've ever seen a team not use a timeout.
Yeah, like that. I don't know, man. That to me was that, like, it just, that caught my eye. I'm like, how do you do that? Like, you're down and you don't even at some point burn a timeout. So yes, to me, South Carolina was finishing their blocks. Like, they were getting their offensive linemen to the second level. They were getting the linebackers. Florida's guys were sort of, maybe I'll hold up, maybe I'll dance with this defensive lineman for a moment. But then South Carolina's linebackers were able to get in there and make plays in the backfield. And to me, it just felt the vibe of the two teams was just completely opposite.
So I could say that anymore. Darren kind of mentioned that at the top of the show. Florida, and they were disinterested. They weren't, but I point out this too, Wes. I mean, 2 weeks ago, Carolina had 15 yards of offense through 3 quarters. Before that, Vanderbilt, they had to come back and beat by 1 whole point. I don't care how disinterested Florida was. South Carolina was totally different, and Beamer hit the nail on the head after the game. This is about us, and it should be about them. And the Share Healthcare chat line, Steven, what about that Juju Wildcat? It's another interesting point because that was a goal line situation, Wes, where a lot of goal line play calls this year have been heavily scrutinized, made by Marcus Satterfield, and for the right reason. Some of them have been beyond atrocious. In that instance there, White runs them down almost to the goal line. They'd elect to throw one to Nick Muse, who doesn't quite get into the end zone, and then they go to this Wildcat, and I'm sitting here thinking, oh, no, not this again. They ran you inside the 5. Somebody just punched the damn thing in there, and let's get some points on the board, right? When I went back and thought about it, Wes, after remembering actually what happened on that play, they used Zaquandre White as the sweep man. And so you had, and he was the key guy, and everybody keyed on him, and then Juju pretty much walked in. So I lead this part off with that. Overall, from a play call standpoint, as critical as many have been, and I am right in the top of that category of Marcus Satterfield this year. He deserves all the credit in the world because he had a game plan, and it flowed, and it worked, and his best players played their best.
Yeah, if we're all going to sit here and scrutinize the offense when it's bad, and it's been bad. Like, I don't take any of that back, but I will credit where it's due. This was a great game plan. They and they did, I know they'll probably say, they didn't change a whole lot, with a different quarterback. There were some tweaks though. If you look, not a lot of under center at all. It was almost all shotgun. I'm trying to think of it. I think there were 2 plays, and I can't remember the second one. The first play of the game, they were under center when they ran the flea flicker, which I thought was cool just to start the game off with something fun. Just get people excited. Like, hey,
and it wouldn't be as cool if it didn't work, but it worked.
Yeah, true. But it's still, I mean, everybody loves a flea flicker, man. Good things happen when you run flea flickers, I feel like.
Yes.
But it was good.
The Trey Jones package too. They brought that back, and they need to keep doing that.
Yeah, they brought that back. But did y'all notice they ran it out of the shotgun instead of they were true I formation at Tennessee, and I know Jason Brown didn't do hardly any under center at St. Francis, so I think that was more about comfort level for him. But it was like an offset I with JB in the shotgun. So that was cool. But they really just, I feel like, tweaked the offense a little bit to better just not that he couldn't do the other things, just adds to the comfort level just a little bit. And then it was, I'm sure Perry will talk about this as well. There was more what they'll call like gap scheme, power plays, counter. And it's not that South Carolina has not done those things, but I think, rough estimate, it's been more like if they were a zone team 2/3 of the time and like a power team 1/3 of the time before, it was kind of flipped. They were more of a counter power gap scheme team for probably about 2/3 of the time on Saturday and a zone team for about 1/3 of the time. So it's not that they completely changed the offense. It was just that those tweaks meant all the difference. And here's the thing, when you sort of do things a little bit differently and then it works, it can open up the things you've been trying to do all year long. The Zaquandre White long run that we were talking about, that was actually a zone run. That was an outside zone that the 2 tight ends blocked amazingly to the outside, both Nick Muse and Trayvon Kenyon, which, by the way, we all now know the number 12 on defense. Jalen Foster had an incredible season, obviously, so far. Learn number 12 on offense as well. Trey Kenyon is quietly actually one of the best reserve players on this football team. He is very, very quietly had a really good season. And when they want to run the football, they go to that 2 tight ends with Nick and Trey on the field. And that was very successful for them. So Trey has caught the ball when he's gotten opportunities. If you look at the stats, you'll probably be like, guy hadn't done a whole lot this year. But he has stepped up every time he's been on the field. So shout out to 12 on offense, and 12 on defense was running all over the place as well.
Absolutely. 12 is a good number this year, seemingly for South Carolina. All right, final.
It's a good thing they didn't retire my buddy Andrew Clifford's jersey back in the day, because then both those guys would be screwed.
You're right. Cliffy deserves some recognition, but I don't know about retiring his number just yet. We'll have to see what that looks like down the road. That was a dangerous group of men on and off the field at that point in time. All right, Wes, they got Missouri now. And as Darren pointed out, rightfully so earlier, everybody overreacts to wins and losses. The overreaction this week is going to be much more in favor of, oh my God, we could win 7, we could win 8. Should they keep Satterfield? Let's just worry about Missouri. And then after that is Auburn. Missouri, Connor Bazelak has a soft tissue injury. They have not specified. He was out against Georgia. No word on whether he'll play this coming week either against South Carolina just yet, but he's questionable at best from what I've read. So what's important now this week for the Gamecocks? They're kind of relearning to win here, Wes. They've got a big one under their belt. So what's important?
Yeah, I mean, y'all know what the narrative's going to be. Go back to the win over Georgia a couple of years ago. Can they build on it? And obviously they didn't. They lost to Florida actually the very next week in a very winnable game. They were up in the second half in that game, lost the game. This is a very beatable Missouri team. On the field, it is a coin flip. This is a coin flip type football game. They have to don't if you're Carolina, don't listen to your classmates who all of a sudden want to talk you up in class now. don't get caught up in what us idiots in the media have to say. Just do the exact same thing you did last week, honestly, and go out and go into this game with a physical mindset. If they do that, if South Carolina attacks Missouri's front the way they attacked, easy for me to say, Florida's, then they will go win this football game. If they think they've arrived, then it'll be bad. And here's the thing, y'all. If they win this game, then hey, what do you have to lose the final two? You've already gotten bowl eligible, and the rest is like gravy. The rest is the cherry on top. So this is a huge opportunity for this team, because we talked all offseason. If they could get to 6, then that is a very successful season. And now 6 is right there for the taking.
Could be in a bowl. Carolina, y'all remember what that feels like? Gamecock fans. There are already bowl projections out there that have South Carolina now in them. Obviously, that means somebody's predicting they win at least one more. I bet GC Live will be fun today. Wes and Chris coming up at 2 o'clock. It's an hour away, so grab you some lunch and some water, Wes. Your voice sounds better than mine, so it seems like you'll get through it just fine. Thank you so much, man. I'm just happy for you. You got 5 days of mostly positivity on the message boards. That's refreshing.
It's actually been a minute, y'all. So that I will enjoy every second of that. South Carolina got a commitment yesterday as well.
Yeah. We didn't even get to
Watson, and we'll be breaking down the game on GC Live at 2. And hey, tomorrow Alyssa Lang is going to join us, so Gamecock fans will want to hear from her as well. That'll be during tomorrow's show. But I appreciate it, y'all.
By the way, her shout out of Village Idiot Pizza made me again realize I still have not eaten Village Idiot Pizza, and it looked fabulous again.
It's pretty
Darren,
good.
You have no one to blame but yourself.
I know.
Just like a Nationals fan.
Yeah.
I didn't sell the whole team.
Even the Village Idiot is welcome at the Village Idiot. Thank you, Wes.
Have a good one, guys.
You go, Wes Mitchell, Gamecock Central. Darren, I'm just kidding. You're anything but that. We know plenty of those. All right, it is time for a timeout. After the national anthem, Perry Orth, he can tell you all the stuff we can't. Former quarterback joins us right here on the JB and Goldwater show, driven by Stokes Volkswagen. Right here in our backyard is Motley Rice LLC, a law firm that hasn't lost its Carolina roots. The Motley Rice team fights every day for South Carolinians who were injured while traveling by plane or bus, harmed by medical drugs and devices, or burdened by dangerous auto recalls, including Takata airbags. Motley Rice is headquartered in Mount Pleasant at 28 Bridgeside Boulevard. We are honored to have Motley Rice as a sponsor for the JB and Goldwater show and the Big Gamecock Preview show.
At Patriots Point Naval and Maritime Museum, families walk in the footsteps of our nation's heroes, the brave ones who risked their lives to defend our way of life. Home to the aircraft carrier USS Yorktown, USS Laffey, and the USS Clamagore, there's more than 1 million square feet of exhibit space to roam. White Glove certified, we have several new health safety measures in place to enhance the visitor experience. Come for the day and leave feeling inspired. One of the most impressive museums in the country, located right here in Mount Pleasant. Visit patriotspoint.org for more. We'll see you soon.
People don't like to get stuck in traffic, stuck in the mud, stuck at work, and 2 others you probably don't think much about, stuck with a big medical bill or stuck with a healthcare program that doesn't fit who you are. Experience true medical freedom with Share Healthcare. More affordable, more options, user-friendly, and biblically sound. You can join right now. Explore a new way to show you care with Share Healthcare. Join us today at sharehealthcare.com. sharehealthcare.com.
This is Scott Glaze, head golf professional at the links at Stono Ferry, located on the outskirts of Charleston, South Carolina. I'm inviting you to tee it up on one of the most scenic and challenging courses in the Lowcountry. Our back 9 is highlighted with 3 holes that border the Intercoastal Waterway. Visit stonoferrygolf.com to book tee times and discover all that Stono Ferry has to offer. The links at Stono Ferry is a former South Carolina Golf Course of the Year and is also home to the College of Charleston men's and women's golf teams. Come see us. We would love to have you. stonoferrygolf.com.
Family vacations, a new car, a new boat, all cost money, but you don't necessarily have to make more to afford any of that if you can save cash that's flying out the window now. iHelp Consulting can help you finally get the kids to Disney World, upgrade the minivan, or drop that new boat in the water next summer. Let Daniel and iHelp Consulting consult with you. No fees, just savings. You pay them a percentage of those savings. Save on essential services, credit card fees, you name it. Let them find it. These folks are incredible. iHelpConsulting.com. How can I help you?
Hi, I'm Chris Half, Public Information Officer at the Patriots Point Naval and Maritime Museum. We're home of the mighty USS Yorktown, USS Laffey, Flamagore, and Vietnam experience. And we're a proud partner of the JB and Goldwater Show. We invite you and your family to come see us and enjoy a day on Charleston Harbor. Visit patriotspoint.org for more information. And now, it is my honor to present the national anthem.
Live, loud, and online.
All right, final hour Monday afternoon. The JB and Goldwater Show, very proudly presented by Motley Rice. Causes not just cases. MotleyRice.com. If you've been impacted by faulty Takata airbags, if you've been injured on a plane or a bus, I hope you haven't, but if you have or know somebody that has, it's Motley Rice. They never and never will lose their Carolina roots. MotleyRice.com. JB and Darren, make sure you have downloaded our app, which keeps you in tune on Friday nights for high school football. Just an FYI there. And always head to jbandgoldwatershow.com as well. Be a part of the Share Healthcare chat lines. It's been quite active today. We pretty much figured it would be, and so we certainly appreciate that. Thanks to Wes Mitchell in that last segment. Coming up in just about 30 minutes or so, it's our friend Gene Sapakoff with the Post and Courier. But first, it's our quarterback, Perry Orth, joining us from Columbia, and probably like the rest of us, still celebrating a little bit a Gamecock victory and an AC Flora Friday night victory. They moved on to the second round of the playoffs, and they got a fun one coming up against Greenville on Friday night. That's going to be a great game. So what a weekend for you, Perry. What's up, man?
Oh, man, I tell you, when I got done playing and I started doing these radio things, man, it's been difficult because we always haven't had the greatest of years, you know, and I definitely juggle this fine line of trying to be honest while also being very respectful of the players and the coaches that are there. Because my job as a former player is to never go on and bash anybody. I care about my school. I care about the guys that coach there. I care about the guys that play there. There's definitely a juggling act because you want to, you know, give your honest opinion without sounding that you're condemning people for, you know, not winning games. And that's never the case when I come on and talk. And but man, it is a lot easier to come on and talk about games like that because tell you what, that I hadn't seen a Gamecock football team play like that since maybe 2013, maybe. I mean, guys, it's been years since we've looked like that. Jason Brown, what a story. The kid came in and lit it up. And the offensive line, I mean, everything that we've been talking about, the gap scheme and zone scheme, and offensive line can't block and can't run block, and running backs aren't breaking tackles, and quarterbacks and that, blah, blah, blah. Like, dude, these guys were ready to rock and roll. And I want to start off by just giving Coach Beamer, like, unbelievable praise. I mean, you got to think about this guy coming into what he inherited program that he did. And, we have a horrific game against A&M, and he continues to stay positive and upbeat and firing these kids up and firing the program up, firing the fan base up and saying, guys, we're almost there. We're almost there. And as fans, you're not at practice. So you're thinking like, man, this guy, is he just blowing smoke? And man, he was right. We came out early and dropped a hammer on Florida, and they had no answer. We were head and shoulders the better team, better coach team. We were more prepared than Florida. Coach Satterfield's gotten more blame than about any OC that I've seen. And sometimes, unfortunately, we hadn't had a great offense. But, man, he called a brilliant game on Saturday night. And, the defense struggled for the first two drives. And then, Florida didn't do anything after that. I don't have enough good things to say about the win. And this is not me being hype, over excited about one game. This is more of a, look at the way the team responded after getting crushed at A&M to come out and play like their hair was on fire from the opening kick through the finish. And just make me proud to be a Gamecock today. And not even the way they won. They play like they're, their life is depending on it. And man, they're one win away in year one under Coach Beamer to get to a bowl. Just absolutely phenomenal.
How difficult is that, Perry, when the outside world seemingly is on fire around you? The players, they all have cell phones, they have eyes, They have ears, they have television screens. They know what people are saying. How difficult is it for a coach like Coach Beamer, the support staff like Connor and Derek Moore and others to fend that off and keep them together in the locker room and focused?
Yeah, it's a challenge, especially in today's world. Everybody has their phone. You may not pay a ton of attention to it, but you hear it. I don't really understand. Or I shouldn't say I don't understand. I wish I would have understood back then how important staying off social media was when I was a player. And I'm very, very hopeful that we're doing that now. But it is difficult because you hear it, you see it, you kind of feel it, you sense it going around campus. And it can be very frustrating. Then you got Coach Beamer and our staff, going to work. Lord knows the hours that those guys are putting in right now, trying to fix it, and they can feel it and they can see it clicking on 3 plays, but not clicking on 2. And they're just kind of in this funk, like, man, we're so close. We're right there. We're about to break through. And then for it to all come together, it was a great environment Saturday night. I still think it could have been better. I'm gonna put more on the fans, man. Fans, the ones that showed up, they were there, they were rocking, they were having a great time. I'd have loved to seen it fully packed out. And I think a win Saturday at Missouri will go ahead and solidify a sellout crowd versus Auburn. They just announced a 7 p.m. night game. You got to be there, man. You got to support these guys. They're working their tail off. And same thing we talked about, last week, a night game. You got to show up and help these guys. We need to have an advantage when Auburn comes to town. But man, what a great environment and great game Saturday.
So I agree with all of that wholeheartedly. I've always loved the fan who can't wait to tweet and message board you to death, but hadn't bought a ticket in maybe their lifetime or in a couple of years or anything like that. Don't care what you have to say. Perry, so I want to run through this game with you because you're smarter than we are. And I want you to explain it through your eyes. We're going to get a lot into Jason Brown, but also just early in the football game, based on trends that had been going against and for South Carolina. So One of the things that they haven't done this year is get off to good starts, really. I mean, especially in this league, they've had their opponents come out and kind of punch them in the mouth, and they haven't punched back, really. And then you look at the football game on Saturday night, and the Gators get the first crack at it. The defense forces a punt, which isn't unusual. This defense has been pretty good throughout the season for the most part. Carolina runs down the field. They stall out. They got a 4th and 6. Shane takes the points. Carolina goes up 3-0, but Florida did what Florida can do, and they came out and scored, and the Gators hung it over the top of the defense. You can tell Carolina kind of sold out to stop the run. Florida scores, and I thought in that moment there it was really important for South Carolina to respond somehow, and they did. They came down and they scored. That was the drive where Zaquandre White looked like Corey Boyd and just ran it right down the field, and they punched him in the mouth. So kind of walk us through that sequence of events there and how important it was early on to gain and grow some confidence for the Gamecocks.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. It was a great opportunity for our team to respond after having a big play hit on us, and we did just that. Our offensive line, kudos to him, or not him, but that group. They came out and they just seemed like they were on a mission to prove all of us, including, us that we're talking about it. We were in question. We're wondering when that group from last season was going to show up. And, like we talked about before the show, Jamie, the way that all of the things that we had talked about for weeks, like, man, wonder when we're going to see this, or wonder when this is going to happen. They did, and they hit it to perfection. And I think the variety of the run game was just absolutely beautiful. And you got to give Coach Satterfield all the credit in the world. I mean, he came out and said that we're going to do whatever we can to push this ball across the line, not only in the end zone, but get this offense kick-started. But what a great response. Zaquandre White, what a great – I mean, he every time he touches the ball, he runs like his hair's on fire. Love to continue to see him running the football. And Kevin Harris looked like himself a little bit. Probably one of my favorite plays of the day. I don't remember if it was on that drive or maybe it was the first drive. We did go for it on a 4th and short. We got in that power formation with the fullback that ran power right at Florida, man, and they had no answer for it. I mean, nothing. There was nothing they were going to do to stop it. And you could tell our guys looked comfortable running power and counter, and Florida had no answer. And in my opinion, I'll tell you this, and I'm sure you were going to ask when we start talking about Jason Brown, play that changed the game, second and long. I don't remember the exact down and distance, but kind of get a free rusher off the edge. Jason spins out, throws a 60-yard bomb to Josh Vann, and from that point on, it was over for Florida. We showed that we had the capability of making a big play. Then he scrambles out to the right, finds Josh Vann wide open in the end zone, and just see the kid, his confidence just elevate. And a big reason of that is Coach Satterfield, the plays that he had called earlier in the game were great, quick, easy pass plays to get Jason comfortable and get him into a rhythm of the game. He went out and executed the plays. And, I guess the complaint, if you want to complain about anything from the game on Saturday is like, man, Jason Brown went out, looked like Patrick Mahomes that time. Where's that been? But, he's not a young guy, but an inexperienced guy at this level, and, learning a brand new offense, and it's taking some time. And, man, he's coming to his own. And I've just heard nothing but great things about the kid. Third team guy, prepared every week like the starter. And he got his moment. He shined. And it's something that, if I ever talk to him, I tell him, like, dude, you'll never forget that the rest of your life, those moments in front of that crowd. And, how many people when he was in high school doubted him, and how many people probably called him crazy when he tried to transfer up to play in the big time. And when he came to South Carolina, and there were people that didn't believe in him, that were watching him play out of his mind on Saturday night. And it just makes me fired up for him and our entire program, man. It just was a great night.
I want to ask you about Satterfield, one thing in particular about the game plan, because there's a note in here just the amount of yards gained on first down. I mean, it was more than half the yards the Gamecocks gained were on first down. What was different about the game plan on first down? Because that, to me, is really what set the tone. You're an OC. I mean, it's a lot easier to call plays when you're picking up positive yards on first down than when you're getting 2 or losing something. I mean, that to me set the tone. What was different?
Yeah, first off, not an OC, just QB coach.
Okay.
But no, I do. Listen, I do always. I try to put myself in those shoes, as if I were to be that person, calling plays. And as a quarterback, that's just kind of where your mind goes. I think it's not just a me thing. It's kind of everybody who's really played the position that really admires it. But yeah, I don't know what exactly the mindset was going in for the first down plays. All I do know is that when you run the ball on 1st and 10 and you're able to get 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 yards, 14 yards, man, it just makes your life as a play caller and as a quarterback 15 times easier, because there's just something about the mojo of seeing your offensive line pushing the defensive line backwards. There's something about it just exudes confidence throughout the rest of the offense. And as a play caller, you see it. It gives you confidence. It gives you freed up. So when how many times this year, excluding Saturday night, where have we been 2nd and 11 or 2nd and 9? I mean, I feel like every single drive almost, and when you're getting ahead of the sticks, you're able to kind of work in that quick passing game, right? So you're not having to go 3rd and 6, but you're in 2nd and 4 throwing, 4-yard pass or 5-yard pass for our first down. And I think the athleticism also of Jason Brown helped call plays too. So if they were ever, bringing pressure, which they did twice, and they got burned twice, he spun out of one, and the other time he slid up in the pocket, scrambled, hit the touchdown. And the rest of the game, I don't remember him even moving around that much in the pocket. It was like we had double teams on every defensive lineman they had, and that just goes off to the preparation of the offensive line. Great. It was just all around. Everything was good. But to go back and answer your question, yeah, it was. I didn't see anything different as far as the type of plays. I'd love to go back and just sit in the film room, in the meeting room with those guys, and kind of hear what their game plan was and what their thought process was about, the plays they called and why some of them were as explosive as they were.
Power Hour here on the JB and Goldwater Show, brought to you by Wando Power Equipment, wandopower.com. Rent literally anything that's ever been invented for the outdoors, and they've got it at Wando Power Equipment. Power is a great word to describe what we saw Saturday night for Carolina. The blocking scheme is something, Perry, that's a very technical part of the conversation that 9 out of 10 people don't understand for the most part. Kind of walk us through what you could see from South Carolina's offense, their offensive line. People have been asking the question, how were things different Saturday evening than before? What did you see that was different, and what did you see that wasn't?
I loved the 12 personnel. What 12 personnel is one running back, and 2 tight ends. Mm-hmm. We were in at AC Flora, we call it our jack formation. Coach Spurrier's offense was the buddy system, the buddy right over, right? So when you have 2 tight ends on one side and 2 receivers on another, I know you guys that watch the game are probably remembering that formation. Florida's a big man-to-man team, and when you move 2 tight ends to one side of the field and 2 receivers to the other, it's an easy tip to show whether it's man-to-man coverage or not if the other corner from the other side of the field goes over to the other side where the receivers are. So you have 2 receivers on 2 cornerbacks, and when you see that, you go, okay, it's man-to-man, or else they wouldn't be doing that. So it's an easy tip for coverage identification. And then when you have 2 tight ends in the game, especially when you have one in the hip, it allows you to run your power and your counter. Now you have a lead blocker. We ran our counters, my gosh, to perfection on Saturday. He pulled the guard, backside guard, and that H-back, the tight end in the hip, and you got 2 lead blockers, running on numbers. And man, we found a little hole in their defense, and we hammered it. And those were the two things. I saw more powers and counters this week than normal, and man, they hammered it. And I tell you, Florida had no answer. And then when they went to answer it, then we hit them with inside zone and stretch and outside zone. And we just constantly kept them on their heels. And that's why I started this call by giving Coach Satterfield the credit he deserves. That was a beautiful game plan of what they wanted to do, and they accomplished it perfectly. And at the end of the day, it's the same thing. I'll say it, Coach Muschamp kind of coined this phrase in my head, at least, and I agree with him 100%, especially now as a coach, that, man, this is a player's game. You know, you could put the game plan in perfectly and have the perfect plays called, but if the kids don't execute, it's not worth anything.
Mm-hmm.
And you got to tip your cap to the players as well. They executed it perfectly, and they showed who the better team was.
So, Perry, I think a lot of what's happened this year with this offense as well is it's felt very scatterbrained, if that makes sense. Like week to week, you didn't really know exactly who South Carolina was, what they were trying to accomplish. Obviously, play calling has been suspect many times. It all clicked Saturday night, though, and that's why, you know, I applaud you, and I totally agree with you. Darren and I mentioned this earlier. You can bang on Marcus Satterfield all you want to for what has and hasn't happened to this point, but you got to be willing to give people credit when they deserve it, and he does, and the whole staff deserves it. But the question that I have is, based on the 8 previous games and now this 9th one, where it was like magic, like somebody flipped a switch and all of a sudden, hey, oh, hello, nice to see you. Did you see an offense on Saturday night, Perry, that now maybe has figured out who they are and will build on that week to week, as opposed to the previous 8 weeks where it felt like they were just, well, let's see what happens here. Oh, that didn't work. Let's try this. That didn't work. If you kind of get the gist of my question, like, have we entered that zone of, okay, we understand who we are. It's now time to just continue to perfect that.
Yeah, I think so. I think that we're going to see a lot of the same type of stuff. Now, obviously, things will change from game to game depending upon the defense that we're facing. We're not going
to
line up and continue to play, you know, put ourselves in man-beating type situations when a team is predominantly a zone coverage team, or we're not going to run plays that work better versus, you know, an odd front than an even front. They're going to be game planned and tailored for who we're playing. But yeah, that we are a hard-nosed offense where we're going to try to push you around a little bit. We got a lot of different variations in the way we run the football, and try to stop it if you can. And if you do, we've got a mobile and athletic quarterback who can make some big plays in the air, and we've got a couple of receivers that can go get the ball, and our tight ends are 2 talented kids that are sure-handed guys. That's who I expect us to be. And I'm hopeful that we can continue that. Missouri's got one of the worst rushing defenses in the conference. And, you know, we do what we did Saturday night. Missouri's going to be in for, you know, a hell of a show. So that's who I expect us to be. I think, you know, it took a little bit longer than, you know, you'd hope for as a coach, but nonetheless, what a great time for it to kind of fire on all cylinders. And a great win for Coach Beamer, for him personally to start, you know, in the start of his career at South Carolina too. I mean, I was thinking about it all day on Sunday, yesterday, just thinking, like, you know, he joked about back in August about the doom and gloom of Luke Doty getting hurt. You know, we go 4-4 and we get crushed at A&M, and the doom and gloom birds start coming back, and, you know, he and his staff just continued to have the positive energy that he always talks about as one of their core values. And to be such a young coach and to stick to what you believe in, even when things aren't going right, and then you get that big win, man, you just got to tip your hat to the guy. And just, I mean, there's nobody that wants to see Coach Beamer do well more than I do. Just a first-class guy. And I want to see him here as long as he wants to be here. And Saturday was just a good overall win to kind of help solidify that, you know, he is a good football coach, and we do have a good staff. And you know what? We do have good players. We got better players than people give us credit for. And I just hope that we don't allow this and become complacent and think like, Yeah, we don't have to bring that same energy that we did during the bye week to practice this week because, now we've got it figured out. Now it's the test of being the test of being content versus being complacent. Being content and complacent are two different things, and fighting that little that complacency bug is that might be more difficult than trying to identify who you are as an offense. I can tell you that from experience.
Yeah, that was kind of where I was going with my final question for you here is what will this week be like for the not I don't want to say for the players, but what's on the shoulders of leadership this week? Obviously, the coaches are leaders of the team. I get it, but the leaders amongst the players, the guys who are their voices in that locker room. What's their role this week? What rests on their shoulders as Carolina tries to win back-to-back and get bowl eligible?
Yeah, I think the key for those guys is, like we were just saying, is realizing that you're able to get to the postseason with a win against a team that you're just, in my opinion, you're just better than. We haven't played super well on the road, so that would be one good hurdle for them to have in their mind to look at themselves in the mirror and figure out and think, man, why haven't we played as well on the road as we have at home besides, the obvious reasons of being comfortable. So making sure that they're as ready to go and as locked in as they were for the Florida game. That's going to be the biggest hurdle that I could see these guys have. I expect them to play like they did Saturday and expect them a good show in Columbia.
Perry, great stuff, man. Always love to see it from your perspective and hear it from your perspective. It's going to be a good week. They won. Enjoy it. Carolina gets another crack at the SEC up in Columbia, Mizzou on Saturday. We'll look forward to that, and we'll look forward to having you back next Monday afternoon to break that one down as well. Hopefully it's another victory. Thank you so much, brother.
Yeah. You bet, man. Go Gamecocks, and enjoy the week, everybody. It's a good one.
No question. There you go. Perry Orth, former quarterback for the Gamecocks. All right, 131. Some couple things we haven't gotten to. Some news before we got on the air in hoops. Keyshawn Bryant suspended for the first 5 games of the year at South Carolina. It is a violation of athletics department policy, according to Frank Martin. And he said he has known about this for a while, but you won't see Keyshawn in there tomorrow night. Carolina tips off the regular season. The women tip off tomorrow, too, and a tough one on the road at NC State. That's a top 5 matchup, 5 o'clock on ESPN. In basketball, we are going to get into some basketball coming up here with Gene Sapakoff. But back to college football over the weekend. If you happen to miss some of the scores, I'm going to run down that roster for you before we hit this timeout. Georgia throttled Missouri. So Missouri, Darren, is going to be limping into the weekend and maybe without their starting quarterback again in Connor Bazelak. Their last win was right before Georgia, but it was against Vanderbilt, 37-28. They did give up some points. That defense has been tough all year, and it's been tough to watch all year, I should say. Now it's Carolina, Florida, and Arkansas to finish for Mizzou. But we'll wait to hear this week about Connor Bazelak, whether he'll play against Carolina or not. Bama squeaked by against LSU. Tomorrow's playoff rankings are going to be interesting to watch. I think we all can agree who number 1 is, but does anybody really know who 2 through 4 is or beyond that? I mean, there's a lot of question marks. Purdue upsets Michigan State. We talked on Friday that this could happen. I didn't believe it, but it did. Michigan State does still control their own destiny.
I'm going to throw a note at you for that. Purdue, 17 wins against AP top 5 while unranked. That is 6 more than anyone else ever. Yeah. It's amazing. It's an amazing stat. I got tons of notes when we get to them in the next couple days. Well, they've done it now. A weekend full of wild numbers.
This whole year, college football has just been awesome. I mean, it really has. Oregon, they didn't go on the road and pound Washington, a 26-16 victory there. Ohio State, quote unquote, survived Nebraska. It's another one of those weeks for Scott Frost. It's like, man, you feel like maybe a couple of plays here and there, and they might have more than 3 wins. They don't, but Ohio State did win, and they might be in the playoff tomorrow night.
Offense is becoming an issue for them. 4 touchdowns on their last 27 offensive drives.
Yeah, where's C.J. Stroud now in this Heisman campaign? I don't know. Cincinnati didn't look good in a win over Tulsa, 28-20. Michigan did over Indiana. Wake Forest proved again that they can't play defense. They can score a lot. Sam Hartman, by the way, should probably be a Heisman Trophy candidate, but that loss probably is going to hurt him a little bit, even though they did put up 55. He didn't give up 58.
It wasn't an ACC game. Interestingly enough, that was a strange scheduling quirk. They decided to schedule non-conference game against each other.
That's right.
Weird. It's a weird quirk just to be aware of.
It was that is something that they put into the ACC's bylaws a few years ago when they went to their new scheduling format to be able to preserve rivalries on Tobacco Road. So you can elect to play 9 if you'd like to keep the game, but it won't count towards your 8. And I didn't even realize this one wasn't going to count towards our 8 until during the game. I was like, oh, yeah.
Me either.
I knew they were playing 9, but that was probably poor planning on my part there. TCU upsets Baylor. Oklahoma State went to West Virginia and burned their couches. Notre Dame over Navy this weekend. A&M over Auburn. A&M's defense we mentioned earlier is something special. BYU big. Ole Miss did beat Liberty. They didn't look great either. 27-14. Malik Willis probably could have had a better game if they could have blocked anybody, but they literally didn't block anybody from start to finish in the ball game.
Rebels were up like 24-27-0, and then just kind of sat around and let Liberty climb back in.
I know the air was out of the balloon. It wasn't a great crowd for Hugh Freeze returning. Arkansas by 3 on an upset over Mississippi State. They're bowl eligible, 6-3. Hello Hogs in the postseason. Tennessee goes to Kentucky, humbles them, puts 45 against that Wildcat defense on the board.
Kentucky never punted and ran 99 plays and lost.
Tennessee's offense, man. Josh Heupel's brought something special up there on that side of the football. NC State over Florida State. The Wolfpack 7-2. Illinois, I can't figure them out. They've upset Minnesota. Minnesota apparently isn't that good either. Wisconsin over Rutgers. Iowa over Northwestern. Boise State went to Fresno and beat the crap out of them, 40-14. That was something. San Diego State laid over Hawaii, and Pittsburgh over Duke. That's your top 25 in college football. All right, 1:36 Monday afternoon. We got to hit a timeout. Final one of the day when we return. Gene Sapakoff on Clemson, Carolina, and more right here on the JB and Goldwater Show.
Hopefully, you won't ever need legal help for a catastrophic injury or health issues from a medical drug or device. But if you or a loved one suffers injury or loss, Motley Rice LLC is a nationally recognized law firm that is right here in Mount Pleasant at 28 Ridgeside Boulevard. Thank you, Motley Rice, for sponsoring the JB and Goldwater Show and the Big Gamecock Preview Show. Visit motleyrice.com for more. motleyrice.com.
This is Mike Mazzell for Stokes Volkswagen on Ashley Phosphate Road. You know what happens when you sell record numbers of new vehicles? That's right. We take in record numbers of local trades. Despite what the news is saying, quality pre-owned vehicles really aren't that hard to find. You just need to know where to look. Stokes Volkswagen on Ashley Phosphate and on the web at stokesvw.com. We've got over 1,200 pre-owned cars, trucks, SUVs, and all at a fraction of the price when new. Every vehicle has been inspected and reconditioned, many with the balance of factory warranty. Best of all, at Stokes Volkswagen, you don't need perfect credit to get approved for a quality pre-owned vehicle. And we'll take any trade in any condition, even if you owe thousands more than it's worth. Don't forget, we'll buy your car even if you don't buy a car from us. You're going to love our pre-owned selection, I guarantee it. So come see us today at Stokes Volkswagen on Ashley Phosphate or stokesvw.com.
Peace and love at Stokes VW.
Negative trade equity financed a new loan, subject to lender approval.
Wando Power Equipment, the trusted home of Hustler zero-turn residential and commercial mowers. There is nobody more trusted in South Carolina than our friends from Wando Power Equipment. They've been providing elite commercial and residential service for over 30 years. Landscape Services have turned to their selection of Hustler zero-turn mowers like the Raptor. Bigger, stronger, faster, and the most durable Raptor Hustler has ever designed. Located on Daniel Island and online at wandopower.com. Wando Power Equipment, owned by the Price family, the home of Hustler zero-turn mowers, rentals, service, and specializing in family and friendship.
Family vacations, a new car, a new boat, all cost money, but you don't necessarily have to make more to afford any of that if you can save cash that's flying out the window now. iHelp Consulting can help you finally get the kids to Disney World, upgrade the minivan, or drop that new boat in the water next summer. Let Daniel and iHelp Consulting consult with you. No fees, just savings. You pay them a percentage of those savings. Save on essential services, credit card fees, you name it. Let them find it. These folks are incredible. iHelpConsulting.com. How can I help you?
You hear me talk about Dog and Duck all the time, and there's no other place I'm going to watch my college and NFL than the Dog and Duck. They have 3 locations, Bell Hall, Park West, and Clements Ferry Road. They have specials all football season long, like $12 pitchers of their own D2 brew, $5 pints of Sierra Nevada, weekly pick'em sheets with prizes, and the best wings in town, bar none. For all your football, college, and NFL, the Dog and Duck, Clements Ferry Road, Bell Hall, and Park West. Okay, what's going on today, huh? Anything to talk about?
All right, greetings and a good Monday afternoon.
Greetings and a good Tuesday afternoon.
Greetings and a good Wednesday afternoon, and welcome aboard. All right, greetings and a good Thursday afternoon. Greetings and a good Friday afternoon, and welcome aboard.
Final segment, Monday afternoon. Welcome back. The JB and Goldwater Show and Power Hour here, brought to you by Wando Power Equipment. Real quick here before we get to Gene. In the SoCon this weekend, the Citadel loses their 5th straight game. They've given up 37.2 points per game in those 5 straight losses. Furman falls to Western Carolina. Wofford falls to Chattanooga. Chattanooga, ETSU, Mercer all tied atop the SoCon at 5-1. And in the Big South, Charleston Southern loses 21-18 over against North Carolina A&T. They're now 3-5, 2-4 under Autry Denson here in 2021. With all that being said, Gene Sapakoff, we missed him last week. He was off celebrating with the Braves in Atlanta, but we've got him this week. Hey, bud.
I just want to tell you guys, and I think you could probably relate to this because I've watched the game over like 2 or 3 times now, and it's just amazing, astonishing, thrilling to see a team that you know very well be coming in as a double-digit underdog and then win by double digits. It's amazing. And, of course, I'm talking about the Denver Broncos against the Dallas Cowboys, but the Gamecocks had a good game, too.
The NFL, man, I was thinking about equating what the Gamecocks did to some of the stuff in the NFL. Because the NFL is wild. I mean, every NFL week, if you think you know what is going to happen in a game, go to Vegas and bet the other way, and you're going to win. I promise you. It's wild.
You're so right. And that's why you – even in crazy mismatch situations, rarely see a point spread get up into the high teens, let alone the 20s. I think the Seahawks, one of those Super Bowl years, were like a 21-point favorite against somebody. But, I mean, you just rarely see that in college football. Of course, you have, 40-point spreads frequently.
Well, you saw a 20-point spread not be anywhere near it Saturday night at Williams-Brice. Gene, here they are. They're 5-4. They're a game away from bowl eligibility. How do you comprehend what you saw against the Gators Saturday evening?
Hard to comprehend. There's the context of, just this week and last week and the week before, and then there's the historic context. But let's just talk about the present. You really got to give Shane Beamer some incredible credit here because he went against a lot of the things that people were suggesting that he do. Free advice from pundits, fans, etc. You need to make a coaching change. That wouldn't have been stunning if he did. Here's just a consensus. You need to simplify things by find 2 or 3 or 4 plays that work, because that's what LSU did against the Florida defense, and that worked, and go with that. You need to get real conservative on offense and just work around a quarterback that was obviously in over his head, a St. Francis transfer, that had never really played much except garbage time against SEC competition. He did none of that. He went completely the opposite. Come out with a flea flicker, throwing the ball over the place, trying multiple plays, multiple different kinds of strategy, sticking with his guys, letting Jason Brown do his thing. And here they are. I know they're technically underdogs in the rest of the games, although that Missouri point spread could flip, and I wouldn't be surprised at all if it does. But this just is like a whole different kind of vibe for this program right now.
I mean, with all the problems they've had, Gene, and it looked pretty bleak after that A&M game. I mean, let's all be honest. That was as deflating as it gets when you have 15 yards of offense through 3 games and all that, or through 3 quarters and all that. But all the trials and tribulations, they're not there. So if they get there, I'm going to ask you the question again. But I'll ask it a little bit differently. But if they can get to bowl eligibility in Shane's first year, now you've got the Florida win under your belt. You didn't lose any of the games you're supposed to win, which is always a positive. People forget that sometimes. But what if they had lost the Vanderbilt game or something like that, or the ECU game on the road? They didn't. If he gets to bowl eligibility, what do you think that means about his future?
I think it really just is a nice layer of icing, but I think he's already done a lot here with this game. I think it's house money the rest of the way. And I think that for this roster, they've really bought in, and those current players are the best recruiters that you can have. Something Jabari Ellis said after the game, that before, during the week, he had come up to Shane Beamer and said, we've got your back. The seniors have your back. That's a special thing too, because that was another thing that maybe people were saying is, hey, this season's kind of over. Let's start looking at the younger players in every situation in which it's a close call for playing time or position battle. Give the benefit of the doubt to the younger guys. These seniors have been through a lot at South Carolina, and super seniors especially, and they've got his back, and they believe in him, and he believed in them. I've seen coaches, recently they talk about the Tennessee coaches, both Butch Jones and Derek Dooley did this, and to a lesser extent Jeremy Pruitt, but talking about the cupboard being bare. Tommy West pretty much came out and said that when he took over at Clemson for Ken Hatfield. Shane Beamer has been really careful about not saying things like that. Of course, he says we're recruiting hard and we need really good players, that kind of stuff. But I think it's a real interesting loyalty dance that he has done there at South Carolina to keep these seniors just playing really hard.
What do you think the last 2 games are going to look like, Gene, at Williams-Brice Stadium now? With what we saw, Auburn's been announced as a night kick. We know Clemson, of course, is the final game. You've been around a long time. You've seen that place sway in, and you've seen it empty. What do you think these last couple of weeks are going to look like?
It really is tough to say. Sometimes I think weather was a factor Saturday night. The one mistake, if you will, that Shane Beamer might have made Saturday is I don't like the way he kind of nudged the fans that weren't there in his post-game presser. That was kind of a strong hint and a dig. I believe he said, for those of you who were here a couple different times, he doesn't need to be going there right now. That was a relatively chilly night for Southerners, and it was a 4-14 games on TV, etc. But I don't know. But if they win at Missouri, the Auburn game could be pretty darn cool.
Oh, I totally agree. Either way, they're playing. They have something to play for in these last couple of games at home, Gene. So I just want to get. And I see, Spencer said just a minute ago, I'm not beating up on you, Spencer. Don't misunderstand me. Totally respect your opinion, but and he's in the Share Healthcare chat lines here, Gene. But a lot of people are still, Shane probably still needs to make a change here. He still needs to make a change there. What changed though on those type of conversations on Saturday night with this win over Florida? Like I'll be honest, I've been one of the guys. I said it publicly. I'll own that. I thought for a while, wait, this isn't going to work. They got to let somebody else call the plays or something like that. Just trying to educate myself on by speaking to people that know more than me, I thought there probably needed to be a change made. But Saturday night looked really good. So how would you respond to fans when they say, oh, well, he still needs to make changes here and there?
I hate to be boring, but it's just wait and see. Because, after 3 more games, maybe this Florida game was a bizarre aberration that they don't keep improving, and then you have to look at the body of work, and changes would probably be necessary. If they continue to progress, then I think you're probably going to stick with what you have, and 3 games are a long, long way to go for this team, and maybe 4 games, we don't know. So there's that. The other thing is the whole Jason Brown thing. Is this guy, a really capable, good, consistently reliable SEC caliber quarterback? Because they sure as heck didn't think so. Even going into stepping on the field for the first snap on Saturday, that he was at best very, very suspect. And he was his resume. I'm a transfer from St. Francis who started 12 games against very inferior competition. And yeah, he had some nice plays at Texas A&M, but it was garbage time. He also had some really goofy plays at Texas A&M. So I don't think anybody exactly expected that, which Don Staley is tweeting, he looks like Patrick Mahomes, number great. 15. Look at that. But hey, that's cool. Now, I will say this last thing too, though. If Jason Brown is really that good, did they fail to identify that at some point in the spring, in the summer, in fall? Because where was that all season?
Yeah, I mean, there are a lot, and I'm with you. I think we need to wait and see, and we need to all be willing to change our minds, or at least our way of thinking, because things might be changing, and that if things are changing, that's probably good for South Carolina. Finally, Gene, then I want to get to Clemson, but last year Carolina upsets Auburn at home, did nothing with it. The year before, they go to Athens, they beat the Dogs. They did nothing with it. I think 6 combined interceptions led to those 2 upset wins. Saturday night, it was a full team effort. So how would you I mean, obviously, I know the answer. You want to go win and build on that. But how would you compare this win to those wins in which the seasons they came?
Well, they have a habit of not really doing well with a great successful upset, and you can go even farther back. I mean, in '92, they beat Tennessee in one of the bigger upsets, at least on paper, that they've had, and that Johnny Majors was fired after that game. Phil Fulmer came in. The Gamecocks finished 5-6 that year, I think, and they won the next week. They beat Louisiana Tech. But even in 2010, the year they win the SEC East title, what a great win over Alabama. Number 1 Alabama, one of the greatest games ever, at Williams-Brice Stadium. I will say this, the Tide was only a 7-point favorite that day, but the Gamecocks, in all their glory, go and lose at Kentucky, not a very good Kentucky team the next week. So yeah, let's see how they handle success. I would like to hope that, they don't spit the bit in the other Columbia on Saturday.
Yeah, no kidding. By the way, Parker White today named SEC Co-Special Teams Player of the Week, and somebody should send that award to the Lou Groza boys and girls. How in the world he got left off of the top 20 kickers in college football is baffling. Gene,
points, and I mean, the guy, he's going to get an NFL shot. I'm not saying he's going to be drafted, but he's going to be in somebody's camp, and I think. Yeah. Just the way he gets better every year, he's got a chance.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's about to break Colin Mackey's field goals made record at Carolina, and he's about to break the all-time points record as well, set by Elliott Fry. He's 10 shy of that, and he's 3 shy of Colin Mackey's field goals made. All right, Gene, to Clemson, they escape. It wasn't a dominant night on the offensive side of the football, only 345 yards, but, hey, they won. And by my calculations, they've won 4 of 5, and Clemson sits here all of a sudden at 6-3, 5-2. They need they need Wake Forest to win this week, right? And beat NC State, because NC State's going to have to lose 3 games in order for Clemson to have a shot at this thing, because they're still ahead of them. But hey, they're still in it. They can still win the Atlantic. Gene, what'd you think about the ball game?
Yeah, the Atlantic formula is going to involve needing either Syracuse to beat NC State or Wake Forest to lose at Boston College. That's how it's going to come down. But what I thought of the game is it's one of those things where you watch on, DVR or whatever, those last few plays against Louisville, and you still can't believe, even if you watch the 4th time, they're going to win this game. But yeah. Louisville just seems to have a habit of blowing it late against Clemson, just like it's a Roadrunner cartoon or something. Clemson, every FBS game comes down to about 1 possession, maybe 2 at the very most, even including Georgia, but also including Georgia Tech. That's just the way Clemson's going to be, and I would be surprised if all the other games except this one against Connecticut on Saturday. The other games, Wake Forest and South Carolina, and whatever bowl game they go to will probably come down to the wire also. They are gradually improving, but for Clemson fans, it's pretty painful to watch that gradually.
Yeah.
What do you think of DJ Uiagalelei's progression? Because to me, we've heard it now for a couple of weeks. We've now seen it at least for the last 2 weeks. And even hearing what Tony Elliott was saying after the game, certain things like his focus, his leadership, he's now being more vocal. Dabo saying he understands what it means to be the quarterback at Clemson. He gets hurt, he comes back, and he still leads them to win the game. Are we seeing the DJ Uiagalelei progress possibly to maybe reach a point where everyone thought he was already last year?
Darren, he personifies the Clemson team. He has gradually improved, but it's still not nearly what people thought. I mean, you just look at the percentage of incomplete passes, not complete passes, is not what it should be. His leadership looks good. He's taking better care of the football, but he's not being that dynamic quarterback that Clemson expected. I think that maybe he just kind of needs to step back and rework a lot of his mechanics, and that somewhere, someplace, he will be a good college quarterback. I'm just not sure that that's going to come around this year where you say he's a good college quarterback in this 2021 season. But someday, somewhere, it will happen.
You know, in addition to that, too, I mean, I think that Coach Sweeney and the Tigers deserve some credit here, their staff. I mean, you look at the number of injuries, and it's not just the fact that it's a large number of injuries. I remember as a Gamecock 2 years ago, South Carolina went through this, except they weren't all 4- and 5-star players. I mean, these are all dudes, most of them, who are dudes, and they've been in and out, and it's hard to be consistent and all these things, and you got an inconsistent quarterback. But this is a quote-unquote down year, Gene, and here they are through 9. They're 6-3. I mean, oh, by the way, if they keep winning games, they can win 9 or 10 games again at the end of the season, and you look up and go, well, they were down.
Yeah, I think they'd be happy to walk away from some Florida game or someplace. Hey, we're a 10-win team. I mean, and that's possible. In fact, you know, on paper and the point spreads, that's how it should turn out. I don't know if it will or not because of the way they play so close to the vest, but we'll see. And in talking about the injuries, the weird thing is it's almost like bizarrely evenly spread out among position groups too. And so almost every position has been weakened at some point or still is by injuries, starting with the offensive line.
Yeah, I mean, this is Spencer here again in the Share Healthcare chat lines. You got to give them credit. I mean, this is I think they've done a pretty good job. We'll see how it finishes. It's, you know, final one here though. They've got UConn this weekend, and Gene, I do want you to dish on this column that I would encourage people to go check out in the Post and Courier. It's really unique that Gene has written here. But then after UConn, raise your hand if you thought that – I know Wake lost this weekend, but raise your hand if you thought the last two versus Wake and at South Carolina were going to be some major challenge to Clemson this year. Now all of a sudden you've bookended the season with Georgia, Wake, and South Carolina. People didn't see that coming.
No, they didn't. And in the Clemson meeting room that they have, and this is also where Dabo has his pressers, so it's no secret. All the media can see what's on the wall. It's our season goals every year. It's been the same thing. It says win the opener, win the division, win the ACC championship, win the state championship, win the closer. I guess they could still win the closer. That's how they refer to it. But other than that, if they are eliminated, and they'll know this from the ACC championship talk when they pull into Columbia on November 27th, it's going to be interesting to see that that's really the only championship of their stated goals that they could have. And that would be kind of a weird vibe for Clemson to like almost be playing that like a national championship bowl game. And I can just hear Dabo saying that, you know, this is our last chance to win something this year. But Shane Beamer's going to have a shot at it too. That's going to be a very competitive game. I'd be just stunned if it isn't.
It's shaping up to be one of more intrigue between these two. One of the more intriguing games we've seen in I don't know how many years, but there's a lot on both sides right now.
And everything we've talked about, the Gamecock side for the last 10, 12 weeks, Beamer and this, that, and the other. You got to win that game, you throw the rest of that in the trash. Nobody's going to give a crap. They're tired of losing to Clemson. They don't care what it looks like.
That's true. You're absolutely right. And I'm not one that would look forward to this game, even though I could talk about it 365 days a year. But let's say Clemson gets a lot of their injured guys back and goes into the transfer portal and, I don't know, gets a commitment from Arch Manning. This could be a rare opportunity for Shane Beamer to get a win over Clemson.
Mm-hmm. We'll see. Gene, who's your top four?
It's really tough to say. I'm not one of these people that think Cincinnati is that. So I'm going to go Georgia, Alabama, Ohio State, and Oregon.
You still have Alabama at 2, even with the
I really do. I can't turn away from the eye test. I think Bryce Young's getting better and better. And actually, I have Oregon at 3.
Yeah.
I think, that win at Ohio State means something. I know they lost to Stanford, but if they win out and have a Pac-12 championship, they deserve to be in.
Hey, by the way, there's a team sneaking up on everybody named Notre Dame once again, where the country's going to roll their eyes and go,
that loss to Cincinnati is not going to be wonderful for them.
Just saying. I know. I'm just saying. You know what, though? Gene, I know we're past due here, but we were late getting you, so it's okay. The team that's playing the best football in the country, if you asked me, not named Georgia, is 2-loss Texas A&M.
There's no doubt about it. I mean, I don't know what the heck happened to them against Mississippi State, but if it wouldn't have been for that game, they'd be right in this talk. And it's too bad because – this is the kind of season a lot of people thought they could have, but that was just a weird loss to a Mississippi State team that has a goofy coach who is holding open tryouts for kickers. So.
That's what I understand. If you'd like to be in the pirate ship. Yeah, I know. It's amazing. They still have to go to Oxford this weekend. College game day is going to be there, is A&M, and then they've got Prairie View, which is a win, and at LSU. So their final 2 SEC games are road games. If they can win that out, and somebody can take down Bama, which would either be presumably Auburn or Arkansas, A&M could see themselves in the SEC championship game with a crack at Georgia, and then all of a sudden the door's open to a 2-loss team in the playoff, boys and girls. So it's fun to dream in early November. We'll see how far that dream takes us. Gene, what's in the paper this week?
We got a lot of good stuff. I will be talking about the historic significance of this South Carolina upset and what they've done with these kinds of big upsets or not done in the past. And then I'm going to the Clemson game on Saturday to see my neighbor. That's right. My neighbor, Lou Spanos, head coach of UConn, coach against Clemson. It's a very complicated and weird situation, but Lou Spanos lives about half the year in Mount Pleasant, South Carolina, and he's the head coach, at least for now, of the UConn Huskies. So, right. That's pretty interesting.
It's a great tie into that ball game this weekend. Gene, enjoy it. Thank you so much for your extended time. Wonderful stuff as always. Go Braves, because they're world champions. We haven't been able to say that with you yet, and we'll talk to you next week.
All right. Thanks a lot, guys.
See you, man.
We got Gene Sapakoff, neighbor of the UConn head football coach.
That's a cool story. It's out now. You can
story.
It out.
Yeah, I read it a little while ago. I love it. A lot of Carolina stuff here today. We kind of figured that was going to be the case. We do have Mike Morgan tomorrow. Looking forward to getting him on. Shane Beamer's got a press conference. He's probably going to enjoy this one for the first time in a while. Keith Alsep coming up tomorrow as well. Much, much more. Can't wait. Get back in the saddle tomorrow at noon. Make sure you check out our friends at iHelp Consulting. If you own a business, let iHelp you. iHelpConsulting.com. Save money. iHelpConsulting.com. Thanks to Wes, Perry, and Gene, and Darren, and all of you. Have a marvelous Monday afternoon at the Dog and Duck. And we'll see you tomorrow right here on the JB and Goldwater Show, very proudly presented by Motley Rice and driven by Stokes Volkswagen.